This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, and welcome to the Forbes School of Business and Technology at Ashford University, Schurmann chapter. Next slide, please. This is our presentation on the Society for Human Resource Management Competency Model, and it's presented by John Hawk. And it is hosted by our Schurmann chapter leadership, Kayla O'Leary, our current student chapter president, Narcissa Turner, our student chapter vice president, Chris Clements, our student chapter secretary, and Dr. Katie Theory, our Schurmann chapter advisor, and Dr. Leah Westerman, our Schurmann chapter advisor, and myself, Dr. Catherine Frost, our Schurmann chapter advisor. Next slide, please. With this notice, you are voluntarily acknowledging and you understand that we will be recording this presentation, and your participation is being noted in this webinar. You consent to your use of your voice and participation in whole or in part in these recordings or other derivative materials based on them. And you understand that we intend to use them for educational, promotional, and commercial purposes. By participating in this meeting, you agree to the above statements. Next slide. And I'd like to introduce our speaker today, John Hawk. John Hawk served as the AUFSBT Schurmann Virtual Chapter Vice President in 2018. He is a Staff Sergeant in the United States Army and a Petroleum Supply Specialist Instructor at the Petroleum and Water Department at Fort Lee, Virginia. John earned an Associate of Arts in General Studies from Central Texas College, a Bachelor of Arts in Operations Management and Analysis from Ashford University, where he graduated magna cum laude, and a Master of Arts in Organizational Management with a specialization in Human Resource Management, also from Ashford University. John is currently pursuing a PhD in Organizational Leadership and Development with a specialization in Organizational Diversity. John has held several leadership and management positions over the past 18 years of military service. John was recently invited to and joined the Golden Key International Honor Society and the Salute Veterans National Honor Society due to his academic performance. Next slide. Welcome, John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Frost. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Just a little about myself. I became interested in a class in human resources, due to a class I started with Dr. Katie Theory and Dr. Catherine Frost, which inspired me to pursue human resources. As a vice president, I helped coordinate webinars, LinkedIn collaborations, relationships and rapport, and such a large communication background. Dr. Frost, I took her class at Compensation and Benefits, Business 681, and with professionals from other university organizations, such as the Business Management Club and the Project Management Club. So our session outline is going to cover our introduction, learning objectives, our competencies overview, which cover technical, behavioral, and competencies along with the Schurmann competency assessment, and then we'll move on to a practical application. Competencies, as an introduction, competencies include clusters such as those that are technical and or behavioral. All right. A competency refers to a unique set of knowledge, skills, and abilities needed in order to perform effectively and efficiently. Developing competencies helps organizations define performance expectations based on their needs, goals, mission, vision, etc. Technical competencies are generally based on knowledge requirements needed to perform one's assigned duties and responsibilities at work, whereas behavioral competencies are generally defined as competencies which relate to effective, successful job performance based on the knowledge obtained. Schurmann competency model includes the human resource expertise, the ethical practice, leadership and navigation, business acumen, consultation, communication, critical evaluation, global and cultural effectiveness, as well as relationship management. Just a few statistics regarding the Schurmann competency models and some of the competencies therein. 41% of organizations, while understanding the significance of defining requirements needed of their leaders, of that 41%, only 8% have actually taken time to identify and define requirements needed of their leaders. Another 77% of organizations stated that their leadership strategies were at best only somewhat aligned with their business strategy, while another 51% stated that their leadership is at best only somewhat ready to lead their organizations to success. Another 71% stated that their leaders are not ready or prepared to lead their organizations into the future. 57% of organizations advised that their top priority moving forward is to develop their leaders into more effective coaches to develop their subordinate employees. Another 83% of organizations surveyed stated that their leader development at all levels is very important. However, only 5% have actually developed programs to improve leadership competencies across their organizations. Learning objectives today will be to identify the types of skills needed to be an effective human resource practitioner, learn the 4 R's of strategic HR and how they apply to effective human resource management, and then apply the Schurmann competency model competencies to daily operations through scenario-based practical exercises. When we think about the 4 R's of strategic human resources, we're thinking about the right people and the right things, right way, and the right development. So in discussing the right people, we're talking about organizations that should focus on hiring the right people by matching their attributes to the competencies needed for that position. And this takes place during the recruitment and selection process, workforce planning, compensation, as well as succession planning. Right things. When discussing the right things as far as the human resource aspect goes, we're talking about organizations that must communicate their goals that they need employees to achieve and reward those who meet the stated goals. Or in other words, communicate the goals consistently, reward employees who achieve goals, and work on those who fall just a little bit short so that they too can achieve the organization's goals. 3, the right way talks about developing competencies and providing feedback, clearly defining the competencies employees need to display to achieve the organization's goals while supporting the dynamic culture of the organization is important. Additionally, providing feedback along with the necessary resources to help employees achieve both the organizational and personal career goals is imperative to the overall success of the organization moving forward. 4, the right development. Talking about professional growth, training, and development, it is important for organizations to foster a climate that promotes professional growth and development needed to gain the attributes within the organization, such as assigning different jobs and projects, helping employees establish goals, both professional and career goals, and providing training and resources needed to assist them with goal achievements. So competencies overview consists of 4 clusters. The HR or the technical cluster consists of HR technical expertise and knowledge. Competency cluster, the interpersonal cluster consists of communication, global and cultural effectiveness, and relationship management. Business cluster consists of business acumen, consultation, critical evaluation, and the leadership cluster consists of ethical practice as well as leadership and navigation. Competency models can be used by HR professionals to develop career maps starting at entry level on up to executive level positions. Career maps guide employees throughout their careers and can provide timelines that employees can use to help set goals and an action plan to achieve their goals. Competency models furthermore can assist organizations with performance management methods and techniques, develop behavioral competency models to use when screening potential candidates, and help organizations develop succession planning methods. Back up one. So we're talking about the HR technical expertise and HR knowledge. Some of the sub-competencies therein include human resource development, HR technology, compensation and benefits, employee and labor relations, as well as talent management. HR expertise consists of demonstrating proficiencies in the following areas of HR: employee and labor relations, compensation and benefits, as we discussed, talent acquisition, not just management, but also acquisition, and then learning and development. So ethical practice, we're talking about, hold on, please. Where was that? Ethical practice is the ability to integrate core values, integrity, and accountability throughout all organizations and business practices. That's ethical practice. Leadership and navigation, on the other hand, is the ability to direct and contribute to initiatives and processes within the organization. Sub-competencies of ethical practice include rapport building, credibility and trust building, personal, professional, and behavioral integrity, and then professionalism. So HR professionals create ethical human resource systems and reinforce the organization's ethical climate by implementing a strong ethical climate, which can help protect the company from adverse employee behaviors. Implementing ethical systems, which are associated with improved employee performance measures. Ethics within HR systems in the future will continue to be a critical competency for the HR profession. Moving on to our leadership and navigation sub-competencies. We're going to discuss transformational and functional leadership, results and goal-oriented. This is another sub-competency. Resource management, change management, and influence. Leaders are associated with positive outcomes, including positive employee work attitudes, job satisfaction, and organizational commitment. Decreased rate of turnover and increased job performance. Leadership and navigation competencies recognize the growing need for the important role of HR professionals, including leadership and navigation also describes the attributes needed by HR professionals to lead organizational initiatives and obtain buy-in from stakeholders and employees alike. Business cluster includes business acumen, consultation, and critical evaluation. The business acumen is the ability to understand and apply information to contribute to the organization's strategic plans. Consultation, on the other hand, is the ability to provide guidance to organizational stakeholders, including employees. Critical evaluation is the ability to interpret information to make business decisions and recommendations. Sub-competencies of business acumen include strategic agility, business knowledge, economic awareness, knowledge of sales and marketing, knowledge of labor markets, and knowledge of government and regulatory guidelines. HR business leaders need to be well developed in the areas of business acumen, which include an understanding of the business operations, functions, systems, and processes, an understanding of how human resource management practices contribute to the core business functions. You must be able to recognize how the external competitive environment and the internal personnel resources interact to influence company performance. Additionally, business leaders need to be able to make the case for or justification for human resource management to other business professionals. They must be able to market human resources within the organization and show how HR can have a direct impact on the organization's performance. Moving on to the business cluster consultation, some of our sub-competencies include project management, which includes vision, design, implementation, and evaluation, problem solving, and then creativity and innovation. HR professionals will often fulfill the role of the company's internal consultant, must be a subject matter expert in the area of human capital, help the company address challenges relating to human capital, staffing needs, training and development, and employee performance, and employee relations as well. HR professionals not only possess exceptional HR knowledge, but also be able to provide guidance to internal stakeholders, such as the organization's employees. HR professionals must also be able to analyze business challenges, generate creative and innovative solutions, and provide accurate and timely guidance to internal stakeholders based on the best practices, which are based on recent research that accounts for the unique internal and external environment of the organization. Throughout problem-solving steps that HR professionals can use are to identify and define a problem, which would be step one. Step two would be develop possible solutions to resolve the problem. And step three, we'll analyze any possible solutions. Step four is select the best alternative or alternatives. There may be more than one solution that can be used. And then step five, we'll implement the solution. Step six, evaluate the effectiveness of the decision. And then step seven, revise if necessary. Consultation sub-competencies also include career pathing, which includes early, mid, senior, and executive level HR professionals. In the early level, the HR professional generally has little to no experience and generally supports operational functions in the organization, manages small projects, and carries the HR plan at the transactional level. The mid-level HR professional generally has moderate experience, leads and supports operational functions, leads and manages small to mid-sized projects, implements the HR plan, and helps refine the plan. The senior level HR executive generally has significant experience, serves as a high-level strategic or operational leader or an HR consultant, oversees large projects or multiple projects simultaneously, operationalizes the HR strategy, and translates the strategy into a plan. Whereas the executive level HR executive is the senior HR leader of the group and potentially could potentially hold the role of the vice president. Consultation, the business cluster consultation sub-competencies include talent management, people management, and time management. HR professionals must ensure they are trained adequately in time management. Ensure HR employees are trained, new employees as well as existing employees, in the principles and techniques of an effective time management plan. Why is time management important? We sometimes ask ourselves. Well, being able to effectively manage time can help avoid stress and decrease production, can help avoid cramming at the last minute to complete a project, and it can avoid misplacing priorities. Managing time also prevents us from wasting time by allowing unnecessary distractions, by holding unnecessary and unproductive meetings, and of course, misplaced priorities. Sometimes it's easy to allow conflicting demands to take over our competing demands. However, by managing time, we'll be able to identify and recognize that which is important to completing the task at hand. Some tips to effectively manage time include planning each day or each day of the week, and to manage and control interruptions throughout the day. Creating a to-do list, which is cross off items once they're completed. Reprioritize when competing demands clash with conflicting demands. Control your conflicting demands. And then maintain your work-life balance as best as possible throughout the day. Critical evaluation sub-competencies include measurement and assessment skills, critical thinking, problem solving, research methodology, decision-making, and knowledge management. Critical evaluation is necessary for HR professionals in order to enhance the effectiveness and usefulness of human capital programs and to improve development and monitor success through data such as human capital metrics. Human capital metrics add value to the role of human resources as well as provide a means of illustrating the benefits of critical evaluation to strategic HR partners. HR professionals must be able to justify their decisions with data collected and analyzed. Some of the HR metrics that can be used include attendance metrics, which evaluate the cost of absenteeism and the rate of absenteeism, compensation metrics, which evaluate the cost of employee health care per employee, including workers' compensation. Human resource efficiency metrics include HR cost per employee, which create and implement and administer HR programs, and the time required to perform HR-specific tasks. Learning and development metrics measures the return on investment of human capital and learning and development costs per hour per employee. And then new employee onboarding time, as well as the cost of onboarding per employee. Business productivity metrics measures the cost of customer retention rate, the cost of employee engagement, and of human capital, or the return on the investment overall. Retention metrics, on the other hand, measures the change in the number of employees in the succession plan and the cost of employee turnover. Talent acquisition measures the ratio of diversity hires versus the ratio of the number of females that are hired for the organization. Metrics that measure well-being measure the average sick leave per employee, the average lost time due to workplace accidents, the average change in harassment claims, and the average number of accident-free days. Workforce demographics metrics measures the percentage of diversity within the organization, the percentage of female executives within the organization, as well as the total number of females throughout the organization as a whole. And there we discussed the attendance, compensation, HR efficiency, learning and development, business retention, talent acquisition, well-being, and workforce demographic metrics. Moving on to the interpersonal competency cluster, we have communication, and cultural effectiveness, and relationship management. Interpersonal communication is the ability to effectively exchange information with stakeholders. Now, with stakeholders, that also includes employees and external stakeholders alike. And cultural effectiveness is the ability to value and consider the perspectives and backgrounds of all parties involved. Relationship management is the ability to manage interactions and provide services and to support the organization. Some of the sub-competencies within your communication competency is verbal and written communication skills, persuasion, perceptual objectivity, active listening, and social technology and social media savvy. HR professionals must be able to communicate in a proactive manner. HR professionals must be able to welcome multiple perspectives, as well as particularly in a globally diverse workplace. It's important to value the opinions and input of all employees within the organization. HR professionals must be able to lead effective meetings. You must be able to provide thoughtful feedback, gain critical thinking skills, as well as deliver critical information to all stakeholders inside and outside the organization. HR professionals must seek information to clarify any uncertainties regarding any particular aspect of HR functions. HR professionals must be able to maximize the use and availability of social media platforms to assist with effective communication and to ensure the widest dissemination of information to ensure nobody is left out of the loop of the information flow. Global and cultural effectiveness sub-competencies include global and diversity perspective, openness to various perspectives, openness to experience, adaptability, and cultural awareness and respect. Global and cultural effectiveness is becoming increasingly important in business today, given the fact that many organizations today, especially multinational corporations, are becoming a lot more global than in the past. HR professionals must be able to effectively and respectfully interact with the company's internal and external customers, clients, and colleagues in a globally diverse culture. HR professionals must be able to develop, deliver, and evaluate initiatives relating to cultural diversity issues. And HR professionals must know and understand laws and regulations pertaining to the inclusion, and diversity hiring practices. Relationship management sub-competencies include people management and employee engagement, advocacy, negotiation and conflict management, transparency, and mutual respect. So when we talk about conflict, some of the causes of conflict include the varying perspectives of employees, which also can be attributed to cultural awareness, many different cultural aspects and values, attitudes, and beliefs within each culture. Additionally, sometimes employees spend too much time together, so that can cause conflict. And then sometimes employees depend on other people to get the job done. So if communication is not consistent among employees, one employee may believe the other employee completed a task or was in charge of completing a task. When that task does not get achieved, it leaves both employees thinking the other did it, therefore nothing gets done. So that can cause conflict within the organization. And then positive and negative conflict. Okay, must be able to effectively manage conflict as an HR professional by turning disagreements into ideas. Simply because people have varying perspectives does not make an idea a good or a bad idea. Therefore, turning disagreements into ideas can help mitigate the risk of conflict overall. Negative conflict usually results from attacking a person's character, such as name calling. It can also result in negative cliques within the organization, rumors, and a lack of mutual respect. HR professionals must assume an active role in managing conflict so the company runs more efficiently while meeting the company's strategic objectives and goals. Conflict in the workplace can cause the loss of employee output, employee morale, employee turnover, and a division among team members. HR professionals are ambassadors of the company. As such, they must encourage collaboration and compromise during conflict management. Some of the things that HR professionals can do to help mitigate conflict is to focus on the problem without creating more problems. Also be open to solutions from all the conflicting parties. Acknowledge all feelings involved, and then listen to understand the problem, not to simply respond to it. And there's some things we don't want to do as an HR professional is to interrupt others while they're trying to relay their feelings, disregard people's feelings. Avoid the conflict is one thing we do not want to do because nothing gets better with time. If needed, there may be times when conflicting parties need to disengage and then re-engage to resolve the information more amicably. And then and one thing we do not want to as an HR professional is state your own position or bias toward the situation. Simply state 6 steps here that can help with conflict management. 1, we will clarify the disagreement. Number step 2, establish common goals or expected outcomes. What do we want to achieve from this conflict management? Step 3, create ways in which we can meet those goals. This is where collaboration comes into play. Determine which barriers may be preventing us from reaching our goals. And then agree on a best solution or best solutions. There could be more than one solution. And then acknowledge the solutions and assign areas of responsibility to each of the conflicting parties so that he or she is held accountable for resolving that problem or that conflict. And then so the Schurmann competency self-assessment, which we can do, is can be used to gauge your knowledge, your skills, abilities as a current HR professional. And it consists of 2 surveys which help the professional identify areas which need improvement along the behavioral competencies as well as HR technical knowledge. And then here's the link to take the Schurmann, the competency self-assessment if we need to. It is important to understand that we need to be members of Schurmann before we can actually take this assessment, and the link is provided on the screen here. So just a little bit more here. The HR professional must interact regularly with clients and stakeholders. Right? HR business leader's job success is largely a function of his or her ability to maintain productive interpersonal relationships and help others do the same. HR professionals, it's important for HR professionals to display the competence in relationship management, as that is a very, very big piece of the competency model. The HR professional is often the mediator between organizational leaders and its employees. Therefore, being able to successfully manage relationships is imperative to be a successful HR professional in any organization. So in so doing, HR professionals can form positive relationships, which are associated with beneficial outcomes such as belonging, employees can feel more like they belong to the team as opposed to a detriment to the team. It can also contribute to employees' salary increase. Frequent promotions can be increased over time. Decreased cost of employee turnover, and then greater job satisfaction, of course. Better or increased employee engagement, performance, better team cohesion, and better organizational commitment from the top down and through the bottom up through all employees. And it also provides a positive work atmosphere where all employees can prosper. So at this time, we'll go ahead and move on to our first practical exercise, practical application, scenario 1. We want to take a few minutes out and read through the scenario, then we can discuss this in the chat box on which particular human resource competencies do we believe applies to this scenario, and any feedback on reasons why we believe they particularly apply.
And I think for those of you, this is Catherine, for those of you who are watching this at a later date and are not able to participate in the live chat, if you would like to contact us on our website, we will have our website up here shortly at the end of the webinar. You can send any questions into us and take a few minutes to review the scenario and see how you might apply the competencies and see what questions you might have. And I think we have this one, and then we have another one, don't we, John?
Yes, Dr. Frost, we have another exercise as well. Is that where was that your question?
Yeah, could you go on to the next one as well? Thank
absolutely.
you.
So scenario 2 is a leadership development workforce training exercise, where I thought this was also interesting because as a new HR professional to an organization, there are going to be several challenges, and I think learning the job and the expectations of the employee can be challenging enough, and then so you're put into a position where kind of like this is where ethics comes into play a little bit also, and professional bearing come into play. But as a new employee and also new to that field, you could end up having to address issues that you might not feel actually comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But as the HR professional, this is something that you have to be able to do.
Yeah, and the second scenario where the supervisor is yelling and belittling employees, unfortunately, everyone is not politically correct, even in this day and age of the Me Too movement and all the education that goes on with managers about what they should and shouldn't say. So sometimes the HR person is kind of stuck in the middle and needing to correct the conversation.
Yep, and I think I've seen this a lot at various places before, where, as you said, politically correct is not necessarily something that is not necessarily an area of focus always.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's more than one way to get the point across without belittling people, though, overall. And again, if a supervisor has been doing this throughout his or her entire career, and no one has corrected it.
Correct. Exactly.
You're only going to do what you know is right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we, as HR professionals, we have that courage to have that uncomfortable discussion at when you first recognize it, because as we said earlier, nothing gets better with time. So if we have that discussion, the supervisor may or may not know that what he's been doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're open to, if this is an open-minded supervisor who, they had to have had some type of success throughout their career to get to where they are. So to be successful, you have to be willing to, take suggestions from other people as well sometimes. So you have to be a follower as much as a leader.
Correct.
And I think
in
And
some cases, oh, go ahead. In
yeah,
some cases,
I think
I've
on that
seen,
note that someone would actually be able to um, set their own feelings aside
Mhm,
and think of it from a professional manner.
mhm.
So, and again, like you said, there's no, there's not just one right answer. The answers can be abundant.
Exactly. And that's why the competency model is so important, is you have to be so well equipped to be competent in HR in today's workforce. You have to have so many tools at your disposal to be able to guide today's workforce effectively.
I think that as I would call it, the well-rounded HR professional based on this model requires us to, it's definitely something you have to, you would expect your organization to help develop you, but also you have to be able to seek self-development as well. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes, the supervisor or manager needs to identify the areas where they might have gaps in their abilities and be willing to address them.
Sometimes we have to be able to step out of our own skin and
Mm-hmm.
look back in and see what other people are, or try to see what other people are seeing. And that with self-bias, that can sometimes be difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think pretty much that'll wrap up our SHRM competency model presentation. Thank you for attending.
Well, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we really appreciate all the work you've gone to. And this is your second time presenting. The first time was live, and now this is a recorded version of that same presentation. And we, again, thank you for all the time and effort you've put into this. And it's, I know, been kind of a labor of love for you because you really have an interest in this topic.
Yes,
And
definitely.
yeah, and you're going to be diving into at some point here, getting your certification, and you had felt that this was something that would be a plus for you in going in that direction.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we go on to the next slide?
All right. And then here's the references that I used mainly for the particularly the presentation where I had obtained most of my information. Of course, some of it I, impromptu put some of it in there, based on my own uh, fill in the gaps, if you will. But
Sure, your own research.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But largely this is where my references had come from.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the one of the big ones I used on this one was the Hunt 2014, which
Mm-hmm.
is a textbook where I got my 4 R's of my four 4 R's of strategic human resource management. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a good reference. And then the SHRM website as well. And then, okay, so
And this is John's information if you'd like to get in contact with him on LinkedIn. Um, he's a great resource for you. He's currently getting his PhD right now at Ashford. And he's a busy guy, but he's never too busy to answer a question.
never too busy.
No. And then what do we have next, John?
Okay. And then this is okay.
Oh, and this is our chapter website where you can go on and request additional information. You can, as long as you're HR or Ashford affiliated, you can join our chapter at no charge. And the website gives you more background and gives you an idea of what some of the opportunities and advantages are of joining the chapter.
Next slide.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then this is just one of the pages of, we have upcoming events that we will advertise on the website. So this gives you an idea of the kind of events that we'll have available on our website.
All right.
And then how to contact us. So if you have any questions or additional discussion points following the webinar, you can send them to us on the website like this, and we'll get those. And thank you again for joining us. And you can click on the presentation. This presentation is uploaded to our website now on under the events. All right, we thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Frost.
Thank you, John.
All right.